Financial management firm BlackRock has announced it will begin an internal review of its DEI policies and has also announced that it's already changing some policies it previously had in place. But it also says it is committed to, quote, our connected and inclusive culture. I wrote this up over at phantompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. So in a memo titled Committing to Our Connected and Inclusive Culture, written by BlackRock Management, including Larry Fink, Rob Capito, and Caroline Heller, and shared to social media by Fox Business correspondent Charles Gasparino, the trio declared this. Recently, there have been a number of significant changes to the U.S. legal and policy environment related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, that apply to many companies, including BlackRock. In light of this, we are conducting an ongoing review of our global practices and announcing several changes today. The first of those changes is letting their, quote, aspirational workforce representation goal expire in 2024 with no current plans to renew it. With this change, the management team added, we will continue welcoming diverse talent from around the world, but we are not requiring managers to interview a diverse slate of candidates for open positions. So that is probably the biggest change in policy right there. They are no longer requiring their managers to interview a diverse slate of candidates for open positions. Obviously, that is something that they were requiring previously, and I think was illegal, not to mention immoral. Requiring that you have to have certain people based on their sex, skin color, etc. Next, it announced that it plans to combine its talent management and DEI team into a new talent culture team, which will be led by Nick Avery and Michelle Gatson-Williams. Gatson-Williams was previously the managing director and global head of diversity, equity, and inclusion at BlackRock. Just last week, she was talking about how much she loved Joy Reid after she was unceremoniously let go from MSNBC. As the trio concluded the email, they declared this: our connected and inclusive culture is imperative to achieving our commercial objectives and delivering performance for our clients. As the law changes, we will adapt. However, our culture is our competitive advantage and remains proudly one BlackRock. So anyone trying to tell you that they are kind of rolling back this DEI stuff does not look to be the case. They are literally doubling down on it, saying our connected and inclusive culture is imperative to achieving our commercial objectives. And furthermore, the entire memo, the subject line, is literally committing to our connected and inclusive culture. It is literally doubling down on it, saying that they are committed to it. Now, you can argue, oh, they're playing word games, etc., etc. But this is what they've been doing, right? They're trying to burrow this in. They're trying to institutionalize this so you can't really go after them. And I think we're seeing this, right? I mean, they're literally just merging their DEI team with their talent management team to create talent culture team, and they're still keeping the person who was the head of their DEI team on board. Like, it doesn't look like any of this stuff is going away at all. They're just renaming it and hoping you buy some PR talking points. I mean, because remember, Larry Fink is the guy who said you have to force DEI onto corporate America, onto the American public. He said this back in 2017 during the New York Times' DealBook conference. He said, well, behaviors are going to have to change. And this is one thing that we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors. And at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors. 54% of the incoming class are women. We added 4 more points in terms of diverse employment this year. And what we are doing internally is if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted. You have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. And that's not just recruiting, it's development, as Ken said. And ultimately, it's still going to take time. But I am just as much shocked as Ken is that we have not seen more opportunities and we're going to have to force change. That's what he said, 2017. It's very clear what his intentions and goals were right there. Now, he backed off of this by 2022 during another appearance at the New York Times' book deal conference. He was relabeling DEI as stakeholder capitalism. This is what he said. Stakeholder capitalism is you are responding to the needs of your stakeholders and you're doing it for the beneficial interests of your shareholders. Let's be clear, the shareholders are the primary stakeholder, but to achieve the long-term interests of your shareholders, and that's what I'm focused on. Not any short-term thing, but the long-term thing. To create that durable profitability, you have to be focused on all your stakeholders, your clients, your employees. You're right, there's a lot of noise, and it really does fill the airwaves, and it fills up the times on the airwaves about the attacks from states to me specifically and to the firm. Obviously, he's referring to a number of states were suing BlackRock for these DEI policies that they had in place. And he's obviously, again, he's relabeling it stakeholder capitalism. He says, the reality is the majority, the unheard, unspoken majority really like what we are doing, what we are saying. That's absolutely not true whatsoever. I'm not happy with the narrative because it fills the airwaves and we have to spend a lot of time. To be clear, I spent a lot more time in Washington and states. I'm trying to correct the narrative because in most cases, the narrative is not based on facts. It's based on somebody else's view on the facts. So again, you can see there that he's trying to spin it. He's clearly playing defense, knows what he's doing is wrong, and trying to change the narrative. So I don't think that these people are changing anything at all. They literally tell you that they are doubling down and committing to it, not only in the subject line, but at the end of the email as well. The only thing that they really changed was that they no longer require the managers to interview a diverse slate of candidates. Doesn't say anything about whether or not they still have a hiring quota, which is what he literally talked about in 2017. Doesn't talk about that. And then they're just hiding their DEI department within this other department, the talent culture department. That's what it looks like to me. We'll see what happens. Obviously, President Trump signed this executive order, talked about it in a couple of videos already, titled Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity. The order states critical and influential institutions of American society, including the federal government, major corporations, financial institutions, of which BlackRock is one, the medical industry, large commercial airlines, law enforcement agencies, and institutions of higher education have adopted and actively used dangerous, demeaning, and immoral race and sex-based preferences under the guise of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion, or diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility that can violate the civil rights laws of this nation. It notes these illegal DEI and DEIA policies not only violate the text and spirit of our longstanding federal civil rights laws, they also undermine our national unity as they deny, discredit, and undermine the traditional American values of hard work, excellence, and individual achievement in favor of an unlawful, corrosive, and pernicious identity-based spoils system. So it goes on to talk about how Trump and his administration are working to eradicate this from the private sector, noting that they could institute some regulatory action as well as take litigation against companies that don't do this. We've already seen the FCC send a letter to NBC Universal asking them about their DEI policies and launching an investigation into them. So we'll see what happens with that. I do want to bring this up too because I think there's obviously more things happening. It's not just the DEI, right? This is a report from the New York Times earlier this week, March 4. So I guess it was today, earlier today. And they are talking about that Trump and BlackRock have worked together to purchase a number of ports in Panama that are owned by a Hong Kong company on the Panama Canal. And then it looks like BlackRock is purchasing these ports for $19 billion. So I do think there are some geopolitical things at play here as well, on top of just the Trump administration working to eradicate DEI, especially when you're talking about this massive financial institution that is BlackRock. So I think there are a number of things at play here, and maybe curtailing some of these DEI policies is maybe part of a deal that BlackRock has struck with the Trump administration when it comes to what's happening in Panama and them taking over or purchasing this port from this Hong Kong conglomerate, CK Hutchison. But let me know what you guys make of this memo, this email that BlackRock sent to employees. Are you buying kind of the narrative we're seeing coming out of some of the more conservative-leaning news outlets saying that they're rolling back DEI, even though the email is literally titled Committing to Our Connected and Inclusive Culture? And it says in the email that our connected and inclusive culture is imperative to achieving our commercial objectives and delivering performance for our clients. Let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.